A few months ago, I started working at Walker Middle School. I was looking for permanent teaching jobs, and I thought subbing at different schools would help me find one. Walker had a strange, eerie charm with peeling paint and old equipment. But there was something about it that stuck with me. On my first day, I met the chemistry teacher. She was odd, overly focused on a class project about the periodic table. I brushed it off, thinking it was just her style. She whispered strange facts that didn't fit the lesson. I figured she had her own quirks. As the weeks went by, the teacher's behavior got weirder. It was like she was losing touch. Other staff shared unsettling stories about the school's past. Sometimes, I heard laughter echoing in the empty hallways. Students spoke of figures vanishing when you got close. I felt uneasy, but I didn't know what to make of it. Then there were the chilling moments in the chemistry lab. The teacher would mutter to herself as she stared blankly at the wall. I avoided her when I could. I wondered if the school had some kind of hold on the staff. I felt like I was being dragged into something dark. One afternoon, I stayed late to grade papers. The school felt eerily quiet, and I felt a weight on my chest. Suddenly, that laughter rang out again. It wasn't from any classroom. I stood up and followed it, feeling strangely curious. As I wandered down the dimly lit hallway, the temperature seemed to drop. I turned a corner and saw her. The chemistry teacher faced away from me, murmuring something I couldn't understand. I cleared my throat, trying to announce my presence, but she didn't turn. That's when she paused. "They want you to know," she said in a low voice. My heart dropped. Who was she talking about? I took a step back. "What do they want me to know?" I asked, my voice shaky. Then she spun around, her eyes wide and wild. But what really scared me was the empty hallway behind her. I quickly glanced back, thinking maybe someone was there, but there was nobody. The air turned heavy, and I knew something was very wrong. I felt cold fear wash over me as she whispered again. It was a jumbled mess of words. I froze. Then she said, "They know you're here." I didn't wait to hear more. I turned and bolted back to my classroom. I never returned to the chemistry lab after that. I could still hear that laughter sometimes. It followed me, creeping into my thoughts. The chemistry teacher was part of something I didn't understand, and I had stepped into a darkness I couldn't escape. I wanted to leave Walker Middle, but I needed the paycheck. So, I kept showing up, ignoring the whispers and shadows. I still think about that school. I wonder if it's watching me too. The following days dragged on, each one more unsettling than the last. I continued to teach my classes, but my mind was never fully there. It felt like I was walking through a fog. Every creak of the floor and every distant laugh made me jump. One afternoon, while I was preparing for my next class, I overheard two students whispering in the hallway. My curiosity got the better of me, and I stepped closer to hear what they were saying. "I swear I saw her," one of them insisted. "She was standing right there, by the gym. But then, she just vanished." "Yeah, right. You just imagined it," the other one replied. I felt a chill run down my spine. Was this another instance of something going on at Walker? And who was she? I almost yelled out to them for more information, but I held back. What if they thought I was crazy? Later that week, I decided to confront the chemistry teacher after class. I needed to know what she meant when she said, "They know you're here." My heart raced as I approached her empty classroom. I recalled the way her voice trembled, how her eyes looked hollow. To my surprise, the door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, and the lab was dark. The only light came from a small window that cast odd shadows on the walls. I stepped inside, feeling a mixture of dread and determination. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. Maybe she was in the supply room or had stepped into the hallway. I waited a moment, then turned to leave. That's when my eye caught something on the floor. A piece of paper, crumpled and half hidden beneath the table. My stomach twisted as I bent down to pick it up. As I unfolded it, I recognized her handwriting. It was a list, but the words didn't make sense. a mix of chemical symbols alongside names. I scanned the list and saw my own name written at the bottom. Panic gripped me as I read the other names. Some were the initials of teachers I'd met. Others belonged to students I taught. I dropped the paper, my mind racing. Why was my name on this list? What did it mean? Just as I backed away, the door swung shut with a loud bang. My heart pounded in my chest. I ran for the door, yanking it open just as the silence of the lab closed around me. I barely made it out into the hallway when I heard the faint laughter again. This time, it was louder, echoing like a chorus of whispers. I stumbled backward, my breath quickening. Before I could collect my thoughts, I caught a glimpse of something at the far end of the hall. A shadowy figure, just for a moment. Then it was gone. I turned to run but hesitated. Something was pulling me back, urging me to face whatever was happening. I glanced at the paper crumpled in my pocket, wondering if I had any choice left. That S when I heard the chemistry teacher's voice again, echoing in my head clear as day. They want you to know. I began to understand that I wasn't just a bystander in this strange place. Walker Middle School had something planned for me. My next steps could either lead to answers or more questions. But I had to find out what it all meant. I took a deep breath and headed back into the depths of the school. Whatever it was, I was determined to uncover the truth. As I moved further into Walker, my heart raced. The rustling of paper and the occasional creaking of the building felt louder than ever. I found myself drawn to the science wing, where I hoped to find the chemistry teacher or someone who could explain what was happening. I took a quick side corridor that led toward the back labs. It was quieter here, almost too quiet. My footsteps echoed as I passed by classrooms filled with half-finished projects and discarded papers. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The list in my pocket felt heavier with every step. Just as I rounded the last corner, I spotted a light flickering beneath the door of the biology lab. Hesitating for just a moment, I knocked on it lightly. "Hello? Is anyone in there?" When I got no answer, I pushed the door open cautiously. The room was dimly lit, and the smell of formaldehyde hung heavily in the air. That S when I noticed a figure hunched over a table covered in vials and jars. My breath quickened. "Ms. Klein?" I asked, recognizing the biology teacher from our brief meetings. She turned slightly, revealing her wide eyes, which were full of something I couldn't quite read. "Ah, you," she said in a shaky voice. "I was wondering when you would come." The way she said it made a chill creep up my spine. "Wondering when I would come?" I repeated, my voice wavering a bit. "What do you mean? I need to know what is going on." Ms. Klein glanced around anxiously, then beckoned me closer. I stepped inside, and she quickly shut the door behind me. "You shouldn't be here. They're watching." "Who's watching?" I pressed, my frustration spilling over. "I need answers, please." She inhaled deeply, as if gathering her thoughts. "The names on that list," she began. "They belong to those who have encountered her. It's a pattern, you see. A connection to something far beyond this school." My pulse quickened. "What do you mean? What happened to them?" "Some left. Some disappeared completely." She shivered as she spoke, her unease palpable. "But you have to be careful. She isn't who you think she is." Before I could ask for clarification, the lights flickered and went out. Darkness enveloped the room, and I felt my way back toward the door. Panic set in as I stumbled in the blackness. "Ms. Klein? Where are you?" Suddenly, I heard soft whispers, echoing all around me, their words indistinct but unsettling. I flung the door open, squinting as the lights flickered back on. Ms. Klein was gone, leaving only the clutter of the lab behind. I stepped into the hallway, everything still. My heart raced as I looked around. "What just happened?" I muttered to myself, glancing down at the paper in my pocket. Its secrets felt heavier than ever. Then I noticed it, a shadow darting past the windows of the classrooms surrounding me. I took a step forward, desperate to uncover what lay hidden in the chaos. My instincts screamed for caution, but curiosity had a stronger hold on me. That shadow could be the key to everything, or it could lead me into danger. I clenched my fists, heart pounding. I had to see what was happening. With every step I took toward that shadow, one question rooted itself in my mind: what if I was now a part of whatever was watching? I followed the shadow, my heart thumping wildly in my chest. The dim corridor stretched before me, the flickering lights casting spidery shapes on the walls. I hesitated for a moment, my instincts telling me to turn back. But I couldn't. Not now. As I neared the windows, I saw it again, a fleeting figure moving through the hallway outside, just out of reach. I quickened my pace, my sneakers barely making a sound against the cold floor. The thrill of discovery surged through me despite the unease that lingered in the back of my mind. I reached the nearest window and peered out. The hallway was empty, but I spotted the figure ahead, just disappearing around the corner. I stepped outside, tension coiling tightly in my gut. "Hey!" I called out, hoping to catch their attention. No response. I hurried forward, rounding the corner just in time to see the figure vanish through a door labeled staff only. My breath caught. I approached the door, pausing to listen. A soft conversation drifted through the small gap, but the voices were too muffled to make out any words. I glanced behind me. The hallway remained quiet, draped in shadows that felt heavier in the absence of light. With a deep breath, I pushed the door open just enough to peek inside. The room was cluttered with desks and stacks of papers, dim light flickering from a single bulb overhead. My eyes settled on the source of the voices. Two teachers were huddled together, their heads bent in serious discussion. I recognized one of them immediately, Mr. Adler, the math teacher. The other was unfamiliar, a tall woman with curly hair. Mr. Adler glanced up suddenly, and our eyes locked. "What are you doing here?" he asked sharply, the tone in his voice making my stomach drop. I was looking for Miss Klein," I stammered, stepping back instinctively. Their exchange about student names had triggered an uneasy feeling, and now I wished I'd stayed in the biology lab. "Miss Klein isn't here. You need to leave." His tone was firm, but there was an edge of something more, a hint of fear. "What are you talking about? What's going on in this school?" I pressed, my voice rising slightly in desperation. "You can't just shut me out like this." The tall woman leaned closer to Mr. Adler, whispering something I couldn't catch. He shook his head, glancing back at me with an expression that seemed torn between concern and something darker. "You shouldn't be involved in this. It's more dangerous than you realize." "Dangerous? Are you serious?" I felt a rush of adrenaline. "I just want to know what is happening." "I deserve to know. Knowing could put you in danger." The firm statement halted my thoughts. Then a loud crash echoed from the far end of the hallway, rattling the walls around us. The flickering lights dimmed even further, casting long, eerie shadows. I turned swiftly, eyeing the source of the noise. "Stay here," Mr. Adler ordered, but he didn't wait for me to comply. He bolted out of the room, the tall woman following closely. I stood frozen, the tension crackling around me. The uncertainty pressed at my chest, but I couldn't just wait. I needed to know what was hidden behind the doors of this school. With a determined breath, I stepped into the hallway, ready to follow wherever this chaos might lead. That's when I spotted it again, a faint, glowing light flickering at the end of the corridor. It felt like a beacon, calling me forward. I took a step, and the shadows seemed to reach for me, warning me to stay back. But I had come too far to turn away now. As I moved down the corridor, the glowing light pulsed, beckoning me closer. Each step felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The voices faded behind me, shadows danced, and the air grew thick with anticipation. I could feel my heart race, pounding in my ears like a drum. The light was coming from an open doorway, its edges glimmering with an ethereal glow. I paused just outside, peeking in. The room was small, filled with old bookshelves that leaned precariously to one side. But what truly caught my eye was the unusual sight in the center, a chalkboard covered in strange symbols and diagrams that seemed to swirl and shift before my eyes. I stepped inside, my curiosity pulling me further into the peculiar atmosphere. The symbols made no sense, and I couldn't shake the feeling they were connected to the conversations I'd overheard. Something about the unpredictability of this place set my nerves on edge. Just then, a low thump sounded behind me. I turned quickly, half expecting to see Mr. Adler or the tall woman burst through the door, but it was empty. Cautiously, I stepped back toward the door, but my attention was snagged by a sudden movement at the far end of the room. The light flickered, illuminating a figure hunched over an old desk. It was an old man with glasses perched on his nose, scribbling in what looked like a leather-bound journal. The moment he sensed my presence, he lifted his head and fixed me with an intense gaze. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice sharp and commanding. There was an unsettling energy around him, a mix of wisdom and secrecy. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I scanned the room for any sign of escape. "I'm looking for answers," I finally said, unsure if I should be honest or defensive. "Answers?" He chuckled, a harsh sound that echoed off the dusty walls. "In this school? You've stumbled into a web much bigger than you understand. Curiosity is a blessing and a curse, my dear." I felt a chill creep up my spine. "What do you mean? What is happening here?" He hesitated, the weight of his gaze making me feel vulnerable. Then he glanced toward the door behind me as if listening for something. "They can't know you're here. They think it's all hidden, but some things are meant to be unearthed. You must leave now." Before I could respond, I heard hurried footsteps approaching. My instincts kicked in, and I darted toward the exit. As I reached the door, the old man's voice called out, "If you want to know the truth, follow the light." With no time to think, I bolted into the corridor. The glowing light had dimmed, but the scent of dust mingled with something electrifying in the air, urging me onward. I could hear voices again, closer this time. They were filled with urgency, and my heart raced, unsure if it was fear or excitement propelling me forward. Just as I turned to check the opposite direction, a large shadow moved quickly past me, and I lost my breath. Then everything went dark. I stumbled as darkness enveloped me. The sudden absence of light was suffocating, and a wave of panic washed over me. I reached out, my hands brushing against the cold, rough wall of the corridor. The smell of damp stone filled my nostrils, grounding me momentarily. I forced myself to breathe, to listen. Footsteps echoed softly, but they were fainter now, almost lost in the silence. I strained to hear, hoping for any clue about where I was or who might be near. After what felt like an eternity, a faint glow flickered back into existence. I squinted, the sudden brightness disorienting me. Ahead, I spotted a faint outline of the open door where the old man had been. The light pulsed gently, urging me to come closer. I dashed towards it, the floorboards creaking under my weight. The air felt charged, still thick with unknown energy. As I entered the room, I saw the chalkboard again, its symbols now more vibrant, shifting like serpents. They seemed to pulse in time with my heartbeat. I approached reluctantly, my gut twisting. Had the old man left me some kind of clue? That's when I saw it. One symbol stood out from the rest. It shimmered with a strange, silver sheen. I leaned in closer, my breath hitching as it unfolded in my mind. A circle intersected by a triangle and multiple lines radiating from the center. It looked like a complicated map. Suddenly, a distinct noise cut through the silence, the unmistakable sound of footsteps growing louder behind me. I whipped around, my heart racing. The door had swung closer than I expected, and I was confronted by a tall, shadowy figure. My stomach knotted as I prepared for a confrontation. However, it wasn't Mr. Adler or the tall woman. The figure stepped into the light, revealing familiar features twisted with intensity. It was another teacher from class, Miss Thorne, her eyes wide with panic. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice a sharp whisper as she hurried forward. "You don't understand the danger." "What danger?" I shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. "Everyone keeps saying that. You've all known something, haven't you? What's happening in this school?" Fear flickered across her face, then determination set in. "There are things beneath this place, things that can't be controlled. You need to leave, and you need to forget what you've seen." but a sudden flash of movement distracted me. I turned back to the chalkboard, only to see the symbols morphing even faster now, as if reacting to our presence. The room shifted around us, breathing, alive. "Look!" I shouted. "It's changing! It's connected to all of this!" Her expression hardened. "We can't afford for you to get involved." Before I could object, the room shuddered. The walls trembled, books rattled, and the floor beneath us began to creak ominously. An oppressive energy filled the air, powerful and unpredictable. I knew then that things were spiraling out of control. "Get out! Get out now!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. With a final glance at the swirling chalkboard, I felt something calling me back toward the hallway. Ignoring Ms. Thorne's warning, I took a step toward the light, drawn inexorably. And in that moment, a loud crack echoed like thunder, and everything went dark again. I gasped as my senses returned. My body lay sprawled on the cold floor, shadows swirling around me like fog. The chaotic energy of the room had vanished, replaced by an unsettling stillness. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust to the dim light. I was back in the corridor, but everything felt different somehow. Pushing myself up, I felt a tremor run through me. My mind was racing. Where had Ms. Thorne gone? The last thing I remembered was her urgent voice, warning me to leave. I shook my head, attempting to clear the confusion, trying to recall what she said about things beneath the school. What did she mean? As I stood, I noticed a draft creeping along the corridor, pulling me toward a door I had never seen before. It was wedged slightly open, and a faint light spilled into the hall. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but curiosity pushed me forward. I wanted answers. I slipped through the doorway, my heart pounding. The light revealed a staircase leading down into darkness. I hesitated, but the urge to explore overpowered my fear. I descended slowly, each step echoing in the hollow space. It felt like I was heading deeper into the school's secrets. At the bottom, I found myself in a wide chamber filled with old furniture covered in dust. Rows of bookshelves lined the walls, their contents seemingly untouched for years. Something about the room felt familiar yet foreign. I stepped in, the air thick with a musty scent. That's when my eyes landed on a strange, old book lying open on a table. It was filled with more of those symbols. The same symbols I'd seen on the chalkboard. My pulse quickened as I recognized one of the marks. It was the same shimmering symbol that pulled me in earlier. I leaned closer, fingers itching to touch the pages. But I froze when a loud creak echoed from above, followed by soft, hurried footsteps. Someone was coming down the staircase. My instincts kicked in, and I darted behind a nearby stack of boxes that offered little cover. Peeking through a gap, I watched as Ms. Thorne cautiously entered the chamber. She looked pale, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for something or someone. I held my breath, unsure if I should reveal myself. "Please, just leave me alone," she muttered under her breath, running a hand through her hair. I could see the tension etched on her face. She stepped closer to the book on the table, and I could almost feel the weight of whatever was occurring. Then, without warning, she slammed the book shut and glanced back toward the stairs. Her expression turned to one of dread. "Not now, please. Just not now." Suddenly, there was a loud crash from above, causing the floor to shake. My heart raced as I saw her eyes widen in terror. "He's here!" she shouted, and I didn't need to see more. I turned to flee just as the door swung open, silhouetting a figure in the frame, a tall shadow moving slowly into the light. With one last, terrified glance back, I bolted into the darkness of the passageway, desperate to escape whatever was about to emerge. The urgency pushed me forward into the unknown. What else lay hidden within these walls? And who was this new threat? I ran through the dark corridor, my breath quickening with every step. The echoing noise of the footsteps from the shadow behind Ms. Thorne chased me like a predator. I had no clue what was waiting for me, but the urgency to escape was all-consuming. I turned a corner and stumbled into another hall, barely recognizing my surroundings. The school felt distorted, as if its layout had changed while I was in the chamber. Panic clawed at my throat. I considered turning back, but that menace was lurking too close behind me. Glancing over my shoulder, I spotted faint movement in the distance, a flicker of darkness that felt alive. I took a deep breath and pressed on. Finding a classroom, I slipped inside and closed the door quietly. The sound of my heartbeat filled the silence, crashing against the walls. I wasn't safe yet. I could hear the faint echo of steps approaching outside, and I pressed my back against the door, holding it shut with my weight. What was that thing? And why was it after Miss Thorne? My eyes scanned the room, landing on a desk littered with crumpled papers and ancient textbooks. The dim light barely illuminated the dust motes dancing in the air. One paper caught my attention. It was covered in the same strange symbols I had seen. A sense of dread settled deep in my chest. I hurried over, feeling the edges of the page. Before I could decipher anything, a rattling came from the doorknob. I froze, imagining what was on the other side. The fear was overwhelming. Would it know I was here? A sudden crash echoed through the room, and the doorknob twisted violently. I backed away slowly, now aware of a window behind me. Old and grimy, it looked like it hadn't been opened in years. But I didn't have time to worry about limitations. I had to escape. With trembling hands, I pushed the window open. A rush of cold air filled the classroom, but it was a welcome change. I climbed onto the ledge, ready to leap out when the door broke open. Just then, I heard Ms. Thorne's voice, muffled and panicked. No! Just stay away. I want to let you. My heart dropped. I might have a chance to get to her, but I had to move quickly. I climbed out and dropped onto the grass below, landing awkwardly but grateful for the solid ground. Without looking back, I ran toward the voice, hoping I wasn't too late. When I reached the door of the chamber, I hesitated. The sounds were silent now, and I couldn't tell if it was because the threat had left, or if it was preparing to strike. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open, stepping inside again. The room was empty. The old book was open on the table, and the shadows felt heavier than before. Ms. Thorne? I called out. My voice echoed, but there was no answer. Just silence. That S when I noticed a flash of movement behind the book. I stepped closer, my heart racing as I prepared for whatever lay ahead. What was hidden in that book? And where was Ms. Thorne? As I reached for the book, a sudden gust swept through the chamber, slamming the door shut behind me. I whirled around, dread pooling in my stomach. I was not alone anymore. Someone or something was in the room with me. My heart pounded in my chest, louder than ever. I turned slowly, scanning the shadows. The air felt charged, as if something was brewing. I knew I shouldn't be in that room, but leaving wasn't an option now. I had to find out what was happening. The movement I had seen earlier caught my eye again. It was a flicker, almost like a shadow darting behind the book. I didn't want to believe my instincts, but I felt an icy grip on my mind. Whatever was here wasn't just a figment of my fear. I could almost sense it breathing. I'm not afraid of you, I said, even as my voice trembled. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Then I saw a face, pale and twisted, emerging from the shadow. My breath caught in my throat. The figure wasn't entirely solid. It flickered like a bad signal on a television screen. In an instant I understood that this was the source of the dread and chaos. Why are you here? I whispered, terrified yet drawn in by a strange curiosity. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it seemed to glide closer, and I instinctively took a step back. I felt heat radiate from the book on the table. It was as if it were calling to me. Yet it was drenched in a darkness I couldn't comprehend. With a sudden rush of desperation, I grabbed the book. The moment my fingers brushed the pages, whispers filled my ears, confusing, fragmented sentences that overlapped and swirled around my mind. I dropped the book again, stumbling backward as images flickered before my eyes. I saw Ms. Thorne, her expression fierce, standing firm against the tide of shadows. I saw flashes of symbols, those same strange symbols I had noticed earlier, glowing as if they were alive. There was something more here, hidden in the fabric of her teachings, something ancient and powerful. Ms. Thorne! I cried out again, feeling the weight of the shadows pressing in around me. Where are you? The figure paused as if contemplating my plea. Then it raised a hand, pointing straight at the book. I stepped closer, heart racing. What was it showing me? I opened the book once more, and this time the pages didn't feel cold. Instead, they hummed with energy. I could see the symbols clearer now. They pulsed in synchrony with my heartbeat, and a revelation struck me. It wasn't just a book, it was an anchor. An anchor for something far more sinister. Then, without warning, the door behind me burst open. I turned sharply, bracing for a threat. But it was Ms. Thorne. Her eyes were wide, both terrified and resolute. "Get away from it!" she shouted, her voice filled with urgency. "You don't know what you're dealing with." Everything shifted. The shadows roared to life, the weight in the room pressing against me. I felt a surge of energy flash between us, a connection I didn't understand. Could it be the answer I had been looking for, or was it a mistake? With a sudden movement, the figure lunged forward, and in that moment, everything went dark. I awoke on the floor, a dull ache throbbing in my head. The air around me felt stale and cold, and the room was draped in oppressive darkness. I struggled to sit up, my senses heightened by confusion and fear. Where was I? The last thing I remembered was the figure lunging toward me and Ms. Thorne's voice. I lifted my head and squinted into the dim light. The old chamber was the same, but everything felt altered. My heartbeat thundered, echoing in the silence as I spotted the book lying untouched on the table, open once again. I pushed myself up and moved slowly, every muscle tense as I glanced around, waiting for something to happen. "Ms. Thorne?" I called out softly, dread tinged with hope. There was no response. My heart sank as I approached the book, eyes scanning its pages, desperately searching for a clue. The symbols glowed faintly in the dimness, shifting and swirling, just like before. I realized they were no longer simply signs but an intricate web of narratives, a history woven into the fabric of this very place. Then, a chill shot through me, and I felt a presence lingering in the air. I stepped back instinctively. The figure emerged again, but this time, it hung towards the edges of focus, flickering like the candle flame on the brink of snuffing out. I couldn't make out its features, but I understood it was aware of me, waiting for an opportune moment. The thought crossed my mind, what if I was beginning to see beyond what was real? The idea sent shivers down my spine. As I grappled with these unsettling revelations, I felt compelled to confront this entity. "What do you want?" I whispered, my voice steadying despite the fear swirling in my chest. From the murkiness, a faint whisper echoed, indistinguishable but familiar like a haunting melody from a dream. I strained to listen, to decipher its meaning, but it slipped through my fingers like grains of sand. The book called to me again, pulsating with energy, its presence resounding in time with my anguished heart. I flipped through the pages, rushing past symbol after symbol, until I found it, the shimmering mark from before. The shadow lurched, as if my actions were inciting it. I felt the weight of its gaze intensify. Just then, Ms. Thorne's voice pierced the silence, clearer this time, intertwining with the whispers. "Do not lose yourself. Trust the light inside." Her words sent a jolt of clarity coursing through me. I grasped the fleeting notion that perhaps I was meant to unlock a truth buried deep within these walls. But what was the light she alluded to? I reached for the book again, inhaling deeply as I steadied my resolve. As my fingers skimmed the page, the room vibrated with energy, a responsive weave of tension. I pulled a trembling breath and began to chant the symbols aloud, unsure of the incantation's purpose but desperate to bridge the chasm between darkness and understanding. The air thickened, tension crackling around me. The shadow responded. It swelled at first, then shrank back, as if the very act of invocation caused it pain. It flickered erratically before dissolving into an inky mist, scattering against an unseen barrier. Light spilled into the chamber, engulfing me. I felt a surge of warmth wash over my skin. Through the shimmer, I glimpsed Miss Thorne standing beyond a veil of twilight. She looked determined yet fragile, as if the very act of being there balanced precariously on the edge of existence. "I can't hold it!" she shouted. "You have to finish what and who you have started. You hold their fate within you." With those words, the pressure in the room began to fluctuate, the energy propelling me toward the threshold of resolution. I grasped the edge of the table, willing myself to stay grounded, to focus. I had been drawn here for a purpose, but I couldn't fully grasp what it truly meant. Then, without warning, the luminous light flickered and faded, the walls tightening around me, part of the chaos grasping back. It was a fray I hadn't anticipated, a flicker of uncertainty. I began to lose stability, the balance of power oscillating around the room. "Finish it," Miss Thorne begged, her voice cracking as the echoes shifted. In a moment of clarity amidst the chaos, I took a deep breath and surged forward toward the book, grounding myself in the symbols. I reclaimed the echoed voices, transforming the darkness swirling at my feet. The power surged through me, a radiant pulse of intent sparking to life. "I choose to know!" I cried as the energy blazed around me. In an instant, the darkness collided with the light, an explosion of sound wave resonating through the chamber. My vision blurred. The only thing I could feel was the throbbing connection between me and the essence of Walker Middle School. Then I was free. I gasped for breath as the light surrounded me, illuminating my surroundings. I found myself back in the familiar halls of the school. Students darted past me, laughter filling the air, a typical school day unfolding, normalcy returning in vibrant colors. But that nagging unease settled back into my chest. As the ringing faded from my ears, I realized the book's wisdom and its implications remained unresolved, lingering in secrets unseen. The threat had dissipated, but the lingering questions would exist. Was the school really free from what lurked beneath? Had I truly succeeded, or would the darkness find another way to seep through the cracks in reality? I glanced back, my heart heavy with unanswered questions. Walker Middle School held its stories close, and I was now entwined within its twisted narrative. I didn't know the depths of what I had faced or if the shadows remained, but one thing was certain: this wasn't over.